Okay, we are live and we are now streaming my studio practice from the demo class. Here I am. So today I had an attempt to design and decorate this mandala feature of the artwork. And if you want to know how I did it, then here we go. Okay. Try an experimental technique with the mandala part of this thing. Got some cadmium yellow light. Want to cover the area. Going to be working on. And what I've decided to do is paint each segment individually so that I can keep track where I am. So it's a little bit slower, a little bit more painstaking. But like most things that I do, I've not really done this before, so I want to take time with it. See how we get on. Quite a fat mix. There's quite a lot of seed oil per water per pigment. So I'm not sure about getting the balance right for this grafitto technique that I'm about to employ. What I do know, however, is because I'm only doing a segment at a time and that it's all going to be yellow, I can afford to go over the edges a little bit. I'm going to tidy those edges up. That's that. Tidying. I want to preserve this line here. So I'll draw into it. Then the adjacent segment is also going to be yellow. But for the meantime, what I want to do is protect each segment. So keep them all neat, nice and tidy. So now I should be able to draw into this and have the image come through. So that's worked. Maybe a fatter embossing tool would work better. But I'm having trouble finding one right now. So what I can do is I can just practice experimenting with the patterns that I want. Try and arch. revisit it. Without any cleaner. Sure. Put a little cross. Be part of my design. Work out what the pattern is. Whether or not it's repeatable. Not so hard that I actually go through all the layers based on. And more luck. Decided to rest my artwork on a towel just for this reason so I can wipe off excess. Now it might just be a question of timing, and so maybe I have to let the paint sit a while and dry out a while, or I can draw into it. Maybe it oxidize a little. Another strategy that I've resolved upon, doing the outside and the inner discs first. Keep them separated, and that'll help me work out where the segments are. Hopefully you can see that. Who knows, maybe the mix is. I'm missing out a segment here. This is a little bit unsatisfactory in that the yellow of the background but the bird contains some yellow. So the distinction between the foreground and the background is a little bit lost. I'm taking some paint material from one brush off with another brush. And thick. Trying to work quite softly. because some of the yellow that's in the green of the Quetzal is being lost. That's happening by glazing this yellow over that section. In effect, I don't know, because I've never done it before. Moving on to the next tile. Tidy up my segment. And embossing tool. Tidy up that line. Quite neat. Here. Okay, so already my strategy has changed a little. What I'm trying to do is skip a tile. So that I can see where each one begins and ends. Also, the detail you can get with these riggers, these rigger brushes, quite precise. What I'm doing is lifting some more paint off. One, applying it with the other. So lifting it up with one rigger brush, applying it with another one. The one I'm lifting with is a number 2. One number 1. The extra linseed oil has made the paint a little bit more see-through. A little bit more translucent, a bit more like this. Whereas I was hoping for fairly opaque layer. And you can see where the paint has sunk here. It's a little bit duller yellow than the brighter yellows that have gone on. They haven't sunk quite so much yet. Or maybe I'm just getting the mix right. Maybe I'm just getting better at working out the ratio of paint to additional linseed oil. I was worried before about being able to tell the difference between segments that I'm working on. So I don't have that worry now because this seems to be working. So it might be that tomorrow this paint is much more workable for graffito techniques. But I'm experimenting and also making notes, mental notes, and recording my experiments through this. I often write handwritten notes, sketchbook. But at the same time, for clarity, I will confess that I'm not the most sketchbooky of the artists. I'd rather create a piece. I've got more time on my hands now. Maybe just do a little bit more. But what I do is I sketch a lot in my imagination. I daydream a lot. Rehearse that way. Rehearse what I'm going. My imagination. Aye. But April was good for me for actually getting me to use water mixable oils like these, artisan water mix, but also to get me to not draw from visuals, but from my imagination. And the work that I'm doing right now doesn't resemble what work I typically do. I do feel that there is work is a lot closer to who I am. Beginning to fill up the gaps. And now trusting myself, which I actually leave these gaps with the paintbrush rather than scraping out. Grafitto technique. what I'm doing with the brushes is I'm trying to lift up good E or pellet sized paint right to the tip of the brush. Roll up. Feel of missed my mark. So round about and tied up that line there. Okay. Again, lifting up some more material. Brush. I could equally well do this with a palette knife. So that would be an option for the future. Side to doing something like. And it's nice to have this in reserve because the work that I'm doing for May is the work that's going to be inspired by soul. But that work is drying even as I do this. So it's nice to have another piece in reserve. Alternate pieces. But I do wish to continue making painting a regular part of my life. Now, I think that the base colour is influencing the top layer. But even although this paint is going on quite opaque, I can see differences because the yellow is going on top of different base colours. We're getting a different kind of effect or result. This is interesting. What's the most important thing for me? Actively making something. So, and I read that online today. The person who's uploading their artwork and talking about their the effect of their art on their mental health. She was just glad that she had created something because she felt she had a sense of achievement because she had actually done something today. Whereas I haven't done anything today at all. So I had quite a bad day health wise. I've been in bed most of the day My ME is such at the moment that I have 3 hours of good energy, and the rest of the time I'm spending it either in bed or on the sofa. So I need this art in a sense to break up my routine, as it would be very, very boring. Nice. So if you only have 3 hours energy a day, what are you going to spend it on? I would argue that you'd want to spend it on things that reward you, make you feel good, just like that art, that sense of accomplishment that that lady got from her making her art gave her. True for me too, is that having done nothing today, if I do this, I will feel a sense of achievement, plus the fact that I've documented it as well. Plus the fact that what I'm trying to do is be habit forming. I'm trying to establish a routine. Once you get into, you know, establishing a routine is hard, but once it's established, you can keep it going. Easier to keep it going. Okay. Right, so I've completed the outside ring. Now to tackle the inner rings. That little dollop of paint feels very much creamier than others. That has come on quite and applied with quite a nice consistency. Do the feet as well while I'm here. Feet. So this painting isn't physically demanding as some work can be. Although the actual work that I do, which is online English teaching for a large Chinese company, I only do for a very short amount of time. But I only do it for the 3 hours that I feel that I've got right now. Then nothing else the rest of the day. And the work that I do isn't physically demanding, although it takes some concentration as this does. But I am noticing that I am able to maintain concentration a little bit more than previously. Very fiddly bit there. So I actually correct some of my drawing with the embossing tool. And last bit. So it's still a bit syrupy. Now, what I didn't expect is that I'd get a little bit of a spider's web effect, outlining each of the tiles or each of the pizza slices. But since I'm not too harsh on myself and not too judgmental, then that's that's okay. That's a feature of what this is, and I just try and accept it. A lot of people beat themselves up quite badly about the art that they do, and thankfully I don't suffer from that particular condition. I think the secret is to take the learning out of each attempt and use it to inform what you do next. And if that's true, then every piece that you create is a success because you gained something, a little bit more experience, perhaps, but wiser. Okay, so I've got my embossing tool. See that? I'm just going to pick out the segments. In doing so, I'm aware I'm practicing the technique. I'm wondering how successful it's now. Heading back to the segment which was first rendered, segment here, and I wonder if there's any difference at all. Just going over the lines that I put in before. Lines. I not to overwork the area too much. Okay, but to be honest with you, I don't think it's as successful as I saw it in my mind's eye. I imagined a much, much better result. So, see that? There we go. Reiterate that line there. Make sure my concentric circles are iterated. Okay, first line continues from this one here. Okay, a lot more success. Okay, going to kind of arch motif and disappearing into the bird. Then there's a cross motif. Yep, this one's a little bit more effective. Okay, then the little dots. So as you can see, this one has worked out a little bit better. We put in more dots. And now I just have to continue this pattern. So revisiting the paint that was applied, it's had a bit of time to oxidize, cure a little. Nice smooth bed, paint, scratch details into. Yeah, that's a clean line. Side. See that? One arch, ending in the next arch. Cross motif. Little dots. In all honesty, it hasn't come out as clearly as I want, and I think what I'm doing is I'm scratching through all layers back down to the original board. But that's not 100% accurate because I can see variation in the colours that are being scraped. So I can see some magenta, some blue there for some reason. Some of the others colours coming through other than just the base colour, so perhaps I'm being a little bit harsh now. No, that's definitely coming out magenta. Okay. Trying to keep some semblance of a pattern. Little crosses on the inside and all the little dots. It is amazing how powerful a dot is. In the design, they are very really noticeable design. So again, move this out. That helps us. Right. So it almost has a kind of religious feel about it. It's almost like the halos that surround the saints in the church iconography way. Like that kind of gold leaf embossing icons. 1, 8. Cross patterns. Maybe that's where the idea for the cross pattern came from. That there's acknowledgement of the unconscious acknowledgement of the religious iconography. Oh, again, more. Moving off brush, heavily loaded. Detailing of the two riggers. We check the screen to see background helps make the Quetzal stand out or not. Where was that, my glasses? From a distance, I'm aware that there's texture, but I wonder if the detailing can only be appreciated close up. This outline style. Postpartum. Oh, dots. So I've actually seen iconography on YouTube, and I've seen that the little dots are made with a kind of punch, like a small chisel, and they hammer it into the gold leaf. So I'll admit there's varied success. This one's come out fairly well. The position that I enjoy. Here, style as I've done before. Oops. So the idea for this was the wheels on the carts that we saw in Costa Rica at the coffee farms. They were highly ornate, highly decorated. And it's something that I wanted to include. So wow, this is quite a big one, this one here. Know what I was going to say is that they originate from folk art, and so while they are highly detailed, there is an element of a rustic kind of handmade appearance. So there I'm right down to the blue, gone right through. If I was doing this again, I could probably use oil pastel, oil sticks, and just scrape through onto a layer maybe of maybe even acrylic. I know this because I've done that technique. But I was working on a piece which was not as detailed as it, fairly zoomed in. So I wonder if all the colours have cured. It's been about 4 or 5 days since these were laid down. I begin to wonder if this layer on top has some sense reactivated the underlayer. So now I've got to come up with another design. Maybe a repeated scallop. Oh, dots. Dots. Not so evident. And pull out a little bit more material. Revisiting. And actually, when the camera is not rolling tomorrow, I might actually see uh, if more material can be pulled out to make it much more evident. So, yes, there is fine detail close up, but if you're viewing this from afar, I'm not sure it's successful. I suppose I could digitize the image and then enhance it. See? Yeah. Now, I promised myself a different central colour. I am a big fan of yellow ochre. So, putting out some yellow ochre, hopefully you can see that on the palette cam, all box. Same again. I won't mind if some of the yellow is mixed in a more golden. Part of my concern, I suppose, is observing the fat over lean. That's a richer mix. I'm concerning myself with the fact that uh, whether or not I'm still observing the fat over lean rule. So later on, after I've been doing this for a while and I've used up all my water mixable oils, I like to work a little bit more using different oils, using liquid. And liquid is supposed to solve all the fat over lean. The paint is a little bit too stodgy for my liking. Better. Yeah, Liquin is reputed to make all the layers flexible, and so you don't have to worry quite so much about the fat over fume. Oh, there's a rumor that you can almost dispense. That would be a theory I'd like to test. Little hair going inside the paint. So yeah, I'm enjoying leaning on this towel surface because I can just wipe off the excess, put it on a convenient part of the towel. Not really just convenient. Some of this material here. Get it? Average out the layer. Kind of noticed that the disc now also has a little bit of a resemblance to Mayan disc trinkets. I'm not entirely sure that the Quetzal is Mexican. Special bird, the certainly to the Mayans, maybe. So there's a little bit of that feeling. Mexico is not too far away from Costa Rica, so Costa Rica is the inspiration for this. But I have to acknowledge that there's this other visual element. So the brushes that I'm using are a sable blend and quite soft. Absolutely ideal for watercolor. But for pushing tacky oil paint around, less than ideal. Perhaps what I should do is have something more akin to bristle brush, like chunkin. Um, more of that. Actually, and of course, I have admitted earlier that a lot of my paints are very, very old, been lying there used. So it's much better to paint with fresh paint. aged. But even so, my painting experience in the last while has been very rewarding. It's certainly beginning to be converted to joys of oil paint. I'm glad I chose this yellow ochre central disc because I think so much of the cadmium yellow light would have been a bit of an assault on the senses. It gives a little bit of variety. And hopefully it gives the feeling of gold, sensation of gold, because the Quetzal is a resplendent Quetzal, its title. I think gold helped make it appear resplendent. But lately, while I've been sort of looking at the artwork on my mantelpiece, just ruminating about it, I've kind of decided perhaps it will cast a sheen or a glow, um, joining up other more difficult. I'll just use sheen as a compositional device to actually link elements together. So I can now see that some cadmium yellow needs to be repositioned for the design to replicate itself more faithfully, more regular manner. So this is my zero trigger. I'm just going to go in that little detail there because that looks helps continue the design. Just to emphasize it a little bit more. Okay, cool. Yeah, I was saying about the towel, it's very easy just to lay down the brushes, know that they're not going to roll about, and also you can protect their heads. So how are we going to do this design? What's it going? So that's tricky. Right. Perhaps squares. several. Because it's an instantly recognizable shape. Suppose it's the antithesis of the curve of the arches. So for contrast, this hasn't been quite as effective. Okay, I can effective. Perhaps scratch out probably it. I'm not sure that's going to be effective. I keep working away at that area. Well, that's it for today. I can give you a close up of the detail. All the details. The colours haven't come through quite as much as I wanted, so I'm now wrestling with the idea of getting a little brush and painting the colours into those little troughs that I've made, or even just actually leaving it um, as subtle as it is. Anyway, thank you for being with me again today. Thank you for joining me. I hope you found something that was of interest and something that has inspired you to be creative wherever you are. Thank you for viewing. Hopefully see you in the next one.